very different kind of subject for us this morning. Gun violence prevention. And as I also mentioned, of course, this is urged by the National Council of Churches for us to consider and to have a conversation about gun violence in our communities. Now, we find ourselves in Pretty Prairie, Kansas, so maybe it doesn't seem as close to home as if we were living in Detroit, or St. Louis, or Oakland, or Newtown. But that being said, we are part of this world, and our actions affect this world. And so we are asked to consider, as a conversation, what is the state of our culture and our communities when it comes to gun violence. And also, as a second piece of that, and a very important piece, what does the faith community have to say or to add to that conversation? You know, our faith communities are, we hope, at their best about healing and restoration and wholeness. And what voice do we have to offer to the situation as it is? So for me, I have to say that this is not a subject that I am well versed in. I mean, this is nothing that I really know, I have to say, a lot about. And it was interesting because, as I mentioned, sometimes, well, as it should, the things that we are reflecting on Sundays are usually, in some form or shape, come up in my daily life as a mom or whatever I'm doing. And this is one of those weeks, of course, where it happens. And I wasn't sure quite how to approach today. By the end of the week, I almost felt like gun wasn't even a good word to say. I almost didn't even want to say it out loud, which may or may not make sense as I was thinking about it. But so at home, what I wanted to share was that my sister was home with her children, and we were sitting in the living room of my mom's house. And Logan, my nephew, comes out with his toy gun, which I don't even know if he had anything in his hands. He might have been just pretending.
I think he made it out of Legos.
He made it out of Legos, blocks. And he came into the living room and he shot us all and he left. And Monroe, Logan is almost 7, and Monroe, he's just turned 5. And we don't have toy guns in the house, or we do now. I'll explain that. So he builds his own gun out of Legos, and he builds even a bigger one. And he doesn't really know what he's doing, but he's learning about. There are bullets, and there are things about this, and I just thought, okay, here we go. It's kind of a part of what we're doing. But how many of you played with toy guns or pretended you had a toy gun or something when you were little? Right. Almost everyone's hand comes up, or 2 hands, right. And did it ever seem like it was wrong somehow? Was it just fun and something part of maybe our culture or our history? I don't know, Grandpa, did you have toy guns or pretend when you were younger?
We had toy guns, and we also had real ones.
Uh-huh. Right. Linda?
I was say we grew up watching Roy Rogers. Shooting, and but I think everybody knew it was play.
Right. Right.
I think you can go too far the other way.
Yes, I know. That's what I was thinking.
I kept guns away from Andrew. I just kept him away, and then we were up to my mother's house when he was maybe 4.
Oh no, 7.
7. And somebody gave him a gun, and
A BB gun.
he opened it, and he was just terrified, and he ran away crying.
Guns are
bad, and so that wasn't right either.
Right. So we have all kinds of different experiences with them and what we choose to play as kids, teach our children, whatever it is. It seems part of a normal American childhood experience, or it has been in some form or another.
It's not just American.
Right, right. But I didn't know.
I mean, it's
I was just
a
thinking
world.
that,
Right, global.
But it isn't the gun.
Right.
It's your hair. And what causes that? All the violence you see. They made it like it's nothing. You can kill somebody today and you see him again tomorrow. The guy's not dead. So it's really, the gun's out here, this is what does it.
Yeah. So I
What
want.
was it that Ron said?
I said the gun's at the end of your hand, but what makes you pull the trigger?
He's saying, the gun and the person are separate. To remember that what's up in the mind.
And how does it get there?
Right. And how does that even happen that we come to a point where that's okay?
If Jesus was on the cross and got stabbed with a spear, they would have used something else. Do you know what I mean? It was in the minds of the people to do that.
Right.
So if out there in Connecticut, if the guy didn't have a gun and he used a baseball bat, would you want to ban the baseball bat?
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I
It's
know
in
what
the
you're
person.
saying.
Person.
Right. So I want to. So this is a very charged issue, and I want to acknowledge that right away. And there are, of course, there are differing opinions. And right away, as I'm looking at this issue, I hear the differing opinions that guns don't kill people, people kill people, or the guns kill people kill people with guns, right? I mean, it's how you want to look at it. Some would say, no, this is not what we're talking about this morning. I want to narrow it a little bit. This isn't a ban. What we're talking about is not a ban on all guns. I think what the National Council of Churches is trying to raise our consciousness about is just, or even just entering into a conversation about. This is not, this is a sticky issue, is that there are coming up certain possible changes to the law, that certain kinds of guns may not be for sale, or you can't have so many rounds in one gun, we'll come to this in a minute, but I know this is,
No, I mean, go after Hollywood. Go after the television. Go after the computers.
right.
If you want to stop the violence. If you want to change kids. Do you know what I mean? These games.
I think it's the violence in video games should be looked at.
Right.
We never had that stuff. And we never even thought about it. But now, they got the little toy in their hand, going to school in the bus, and they're playing murder game.
Right. So we're desensitized as a culture.
Supple, and they're just taking all this in, and, nothing, it's a big mess.
Right. Well, so this can cause our mind to travel down many different paths. There's video games and violence in video games, and how are we desensitized to that in a way? Does that matter? Does that affect us? What effect does that have?
I think it's also in our society, we're so isolated one from another. I mean, in other words, where people live, many people live in these, huge apartment blocks, where they live in isolation from one another. And, like when I was growing up, we had aunts and uncles and grandparents all around us. Well, that's really not the case anymore. Families are much more unto themselves rather than being very closely connected, to parents and grandparents. And I think that so in other words, we don't, which has a kind of a numbing effect on how we relate to one another. We're, you don't have the family structure today that you had years ago.
Right. Well, the second way this issue popped up is just with my children, is that we started watching Pocahontas, which is a Disney movie. I thought, okay, well, we'll watch it. Well, what is it about? Right away, it's about the, men from New England, or from England coming over, and they want to do away with the savages, and they've all got their guns, and this general, or a governor who's in charge, he's not a very nice character in the movie, and he's telling these men, if you're a real man, you know how to shoot a gun. If you're a real man. And I can see Monroe copying what he just said, repeating it to himself. If you're a real, and I just thought, okay, I guess, I don't know, we're going to have to talk about this. We actually didn't finish it. But then not long after, just John Smith is with Pocahontas, and she says, you call me the savage, but look at you. And here he is holding his gun. So it's this, it comes up in a lot of different forms in our lives, and how we think about it, how we handle guns. And like I said, I know that this is can be a very divisive issue, but what I would like to do for a moment is just to share a few statistics to see, and please, this is a conversation. I don't have any answers. This is just a conversation. Anybody who wants to share, I hope that you will. Okay, one is that while mass shootings understandably capture our attention, more than 30,000 American gun deaths occur every year. So like the events that we see at Newtown that are so tragic and get us, more than that amount of people every day, this is happening. In comparison with other developed countries, we are an unusually violent country. We have more deaths by gun in one day than some countries have their entire year. And they say, I'm just throwing this out here, they do say that states with stricter gun control laws have fewer deaths. And if we want to talk about having guns for self-defense, this is the statistic that out of those 30,000 every year, there are only about 200 legally justified self-defense homicides. Only 200 out of that 30,000. So I'm just mentioning this just because I know I don't want to, I'm not trying to upset anybody here. Only 7 states require background checks for handgun sales by private sellers. That's California, Connecticut, Hawaii, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. Those are the only states that require background checks for handgun sales by private sellers. And 46 states allow citizens to buy assault clips holding more than 10 bullets. So, in general, when polled, gun control is not a popular issue. Most people, in general, if you were to ask, should we have stricter laws, most people say no. If you list specifics and say, certain things about what kinds of guns or things like that, about semi-automatic rifles, and a lot of people do agree maybe there should be more strict gun control. So as I mentioned, this is a different kind of issue for us. And how do you think, if at all, do you think faith communities should be a part of this conversation?
If the church wants to do something, go after the mental health of the people.
I agree.
If they want to do something, do it that way. Don't get involved in this political stuff. Do the health care. The country has taken away all the health facilities for the mentally ill people because they can't afford it. And what's happened? You know what I mean?
I want to address that just a little bit. I just got some information from a classmate of mine who works at an agency in Wichita, a mental health agency. And they've been notified already that in 6 months to a year, they're going to close their doors. And she works in family preservation. So these are families that are in trouble. They are, maybe have probation, they have any number of issues, and they are coming in trying to get them on the right track. And they are closing their doors. And I think I am with Ron 100% in that we have had so many cuts in our social services. And, you know, and I realize there's got to be a give and take, and no one or two places can take all the cuts so that others can survive. I understand that. But there have been a lot of cuts when it comes to mental health and services that are for people that need it. And if you look at the homeless population, a huge majority of the homeless population, and I don't remember the statistics, have mental health issues. And so I think it's criminal almost that we are allowing folks that really need that type of assistance, that they're not getting it. And in the case of Newtown, I mean, this young man had severe mental health issues. And Ron and I had a conversation about it, and I said, you know, that young man, just based on the things that I had read, whether or not they're accurate, I don't know, but based on the things that I read that documented some of the issues that he had, I said to Ron, he really needed to be in in-house, inpatient treatment. And Ron's like, well, how much would that cost? I said, we're not talking about thousands, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars that in-house treatment would be. But how do you place a cost on this person didn't get the treatment and look at how many lives were taken? I mean, I know that you can't say, well, if he had gotten the treatment, maybe it wouldn't have happened. But that's only one person. And you think about all of the people that are out there that may just be a ticking time bomb. And so it is discouraging. It's discouraging for someone that's in the mental health industry, and to see and to know that so many people don't have access because they don't have insurance, they can't afford to cash pay, and yet the agencies are closing one right after another that can help people that don't have those capabilities. So mental health care is becoming an issue of the haves and the have-nots, those that can afford to pay and those that can't. Or out of luck.
I think if you look at these big tragedies that have happened, almost all of the gunmen have had severe mental issues, and in a lot of cases they knew about it well beforehand, but nothing was done.
Right. And in the case of Newtown, I mean, you do have to question, given what I saw was that some of the mental health issues for the young man, why, I would want to say, why the heck did his mother have guns in her house? Why did they do that? You know, so there's a question of judgment, it seems like to me, just standing on the outside, but very much, we're talking about severe mental health issues. And it's not, I guess the thing that I would say is it's not just, oh, that's an isolated case.
Right.
It's not. Those people are, you know, people with severe issues are walking around, and we meet them on the street and in the grocery store and everywhere. And we don't realize it.
And most of them are never going to do anything.
You're right.
But they
Most of them are.
still would have a better life if they had help.
Right.
So, and I think it's not just one or the other. I mean, I see absolutely no reasons that anyone needs an assault rifle, and if someone can show me that, or multiple rounds of ammunition. So I don't think you can just say it's just mental health, or it's just video
Right.
games, or, you know, it's everything.
Right, right.
I think when you talk about the gun issue too, there's a lot of people that say, their thought is, oh my gosh, they're gonna take away my right to have my rifle or my shotgun.
Right.
And how am I gonna go out and hunt? And it's not that.
Right.
That's
You know,
right.
I'm with Jane, it's about not having the clips that they can fire 10 bullets or 100 or, you know, and having the assault rifle. Yeah.
Well, I think, I appreciate all of your comments because I think this is exactly what we were hoping to do, to begin to have a conversation like this. And-
In Ron's issue,
Uh-huh.
a young girl not too far from Newtown and not too far from where my son lives, was beaten to death walking home from a party with a golf club. So Ron is right, it's in here, it's using whatever is handy, and we have to make guns not handy.
Mhm. Right, right. Right, and maybe, you know, and I think probably that is one of our most clearest ways to be a part of this, is that we recognize that it isn't just the gun itself, it's what's happening within a person. And if we can offer in any way, you know, to be a model or to help, if we see someone who's isolated, if we see someone who needs help or who is feeling alone or whatever it is, that we have a responsibility to share our love, our wisdom to help. And I guess that's, you know, the reason I could have chosen for scripture, you know, blessed are the peacemakers or love your enemy or some of those, but that image of one of the disciples picking up a sword is so different because it's the only time something like that happens. And in the other Gospels, it's Peter who does it. This one, it was unnamed in Matthew, but it says it's Peter. That's such a different image for a disciple to pick up a sword there where he's got so much love for Jesus and he just, in his zeal, this is his answer to what is happening at that moment. And Jesus says this is not the right way forward. You know, in the image of the cutting off of the ear, I guess I just want that we might keep with us. Ears are for listening. And maybe we need some healing too. You know, that we keep our ears open when other people are feeling hurt, when things are happening in our world that are, it may feel far away from us, but when things are happening that in some way, if we can do anything to help, that we should try and listen to those voices. That we keep that thought with us. Because it's the tragedies like Newtown that really get us. But what I can't get over is the fact that this happens every day, 30,000 a year average. And that's 100,000 who are injured and killed. So that's not even thinking about those who are injured and disfigured or who, you know, and the hurting and the pain that's happening in our country every day and in communities where it becomes the norm. I just close our message this morning, our time together with this quote from Augustine, and you can take it in whatever way feels most meaningful for you. He said, "Hope has two beautiful daughters. Their names are anger and courage. Anger at the way things are, and courage to see that they do not remain as they are." May we all find our own way of being a part of the process of change.